address our students who are probably the silver lining to the clouds of uncertainty. So instead that I narrate your life story and your accomplishments, I would invite you to take over and not only share your experiences with us, but also your insights into some pertinent issues facing a young generation these days. So over to you, Ms. Sana.
Yeah. Thank you so much. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here, and Assalamu alaikum to everybody. And I'm Sana Khurshid, and I'm a lawyer. I am a spinal cord injury survivor, and I happen to be a wheelchair user. So the whole point of me coming here and talking to you is to tell you my story, is to tell you how you can shape your life in spite of any obstacle, any limitation, any hurdle that you face in life. You know, we hear the obstacles you face. So my life is some sort of an example for an actuality that you are bigger than what happens to you. So I'll tell you my story, and I hope you can learn something from that. I was a teenager when I was in a car accident which left me paralyzed from the neck downwards. So initially, the first few months of my life was spent in a hospital. My life was a battle between life and death. Every second was, I wasn't sure if I'll make it out alive. So the first few months were just focused on surviving. I had multiple rib fractures, broken leg, skin abrasions. I lost my vocal cord in one of the operations that I underwent, and I couldn't speak because of that. But everything was very small and pale compared to the spinal injury that I suffered. See, you plan your life, you think you have your whole life ahead of you, and it takes just 1 second to destroy it all. I was 17 years old when I was told that I will never be able to walk again. I will never be able to use my hands again. See, that for a teenager, that for any person is very difficult to accept, obviously, but for a teenager it is a fate worse than death. I mean, but the thing is, the first few months, like I told you before, the first few months of my life were just a battle between life and death. And once I was out of danger, I was told that, oh, congratulations, the worst is over, and you've surprised, you should count how lucky you are, and you should count your blessings. But for me, this new life that I had become, this disabled person that I had become, I think that was worse than death. How could I reconcile myself to this new life? So anyway, I am thankful to Allah that I have a very supportive family. They are the army behind me. They're an army of support, of love, of constant. They're always encouraging and supporting. They took me to England for a rehab session for 6 months. I think it's over there where my perception of life changed. Over there, I saw people worse off than me making a life for themselves, living a life as best as they could. And I think that is when it hit me that life is not what happens to you, life is what you make of it. So I did my rehab, and my journey of appreciating what was left with began. See, the criteria of privilege, and the criteria of acceptance, and the criteria of accepting whatever you have in life keeps on changing. You can have everything and still want more. You can have nothing and still appreciate with what you have. So I think when I came back from England, I was ready to go. I was ready to live my life, and I had accepted this new person that I had become, and I was fine with it. I realized that this wheelchair is not the whole me, it's not my identity. I will not let a label of disabled define my circumstances. It's in England where I realized that physical barriers, I had no control over them, but these mental limitations that I had put on myself, they were all thanks to me. And I had the inner strength, the inner courage, and I could overcome them, and that's what I did. So when I came back to Pakistan, I enrolled myself into University of London International Program and enrolled myself into an LLB program. So the first question what I asked myself was like, I am enrolling myself into a educational degree. How am I going to go about it? I cannot write, I cannot walk, I cannot attend a university. What are you going to do, Sana? But I took that as a challenge. I didn't attend any university because the universities over here unfortunately are not accessible, and plus I was not ready to give it 100%. I have my own health issues, so I couldn't attend it. So anyways, I did it online, distance learning program. I cannot write. I used to get a writer and I used to dictate each and every word to it. So it was difficult, it was tough, it was very frustrating, but I did it because it's okay. It could have. Anyway, I did my LLB and I did my LLM, and uh, education gave me so much confidence. I know we're not defined by labels, like I said before, but still, my education did give me the self-confidence that I needed, this the boost that I needed to just be myself. Because one of the major things that I missed out on life was I wanted to become a doctor, and I was in medical college when this accident happened. So I missed that a part of my life, and this education filled that. So anyway, the first step when a person wants to go start living a life in the true sense is that you go out, you interact with people, you meet people. And I realized that in Pakistan, unfortunately, people like me, people who have mobility issues, people who are considered slightly different are not facilitated anyway. I used to go out, there was no I used to get lifted to every place I went. It was fine for a while, but it affected my mental health. It's not a dignified, it's not a graceful way to go anywhere. And why should I? Why should I be subjected to that indignity when I am an equal citizen of this country, when I deserve, and access is a basic human right? So I used to crib a lot and used to complain that, oh, the government is not doing anything, the civil society is not doing it. Then one day I realized, Sana, what are you talking about? You have become the very person that you complain about. You yourself have done nothing for yourself. So that is when I engaged with a civil advocacy firm, and we wrote letters to every relevant department, the LDA, the CDA, the DHA, and the planning commission, the town planner, and everybody, that listen, your buildings are not accessible, and under law you are obligated to make every public and commercial building accessible. So anyway, that helped a lot. A lot of people took initiative on their own self and started making ramps, and I feel a certain sense of pride whenever I see a ramp in the places that I've called out. But that was not enough. More was needed to be done, and and that's what we did. We filed a petition in the High Court, and I am fighting that. It's in the process. It's been 2 years now, unfortunately, but inshallah, one day I will get it done. I will get the laws implemented, because it's everybody. Access is a basic human right, and without access is the first step. So if and we think that, I used to think the same way, that oh, even if one voice, if I raise my voice, what difference is it going to make? No, never think that. It just takes one voice for people to listen. It's just that one push that gets the ball rolling, and never be too afraid to take that first step. You have it in you. If you feel you see something up, raise your voice. And especially in the environment that we are in today, we need to raise our voice, and identify the issue and call out people who we think have wronged us or wronged somebody else. It's not just enough that you call out people who have done something wrong to you, or address an issue that just affects you. No, that's not how it's done anymore. We need to start looking out for each other. We need to start we need to develop empathy and compassion. See, you might not need assistance with the smallest thing, but there are a lot of people who do, and it's no longer okay for you to ignore people who are not like you, who are slightly different than you, because no, if we are all equal, we are all the same at the basic level, and it is our duty to each other, to support each other, to uplift each other, and look out for each other, to look out for each other's interests, and like this whole uh, concept of lifting each other. You feel good. You cannot just live your life just for yourself. A life has to have meaning. If I go to schools and I tell people my story and all my about my struggles, my trials. It's to tell people that everybody has the resilience, the courage inside of them. You just need to recognize that, and you all have it in you. You should never be scared to raise your voice. You should never be scared to do something if you believe in. And conviction and the courage one has inside, it's enough to make mountains shake. So that's what you should always be. And bubble is not enough anymore. And the thing is, see, I can read so many messages that you find my story inspiring, and thank you very much. But I feel that inspiration, I don't know, I'm just living my life as best as I can. That's the only way I know how to live my life. And I'm so grateful, I'm so glad if anybody learns from it. So that makes me happy. I feel like I've achieved something. And achievement as well, that you might think that, oh, I've not achieved the certain grades that I had planned, or I haven't done enough as I had thought I would do. Remember, my first achievement was sitting in the wheelchair for 5 minutes without fainting. So achievement has a different meaning for everybody. We all have our own baggage to carry. Always be kind to yourself. Don't be too, just give yourself time, be patient, be kind to yourself and to others as well. So remember that. And never give up, and never think that, oh, this is not going to happen, so why even try? Like I said before, all these mental barriers that we make in our mind, these are our own doing. We can overcome those. We put limitations on ourselves. We have this whole criteria of life set out that, oh, our life should be like this, I should be like that, oh, I haven't done that, oh, I should have done that. But no, these mental barriers don't, the more negativity and the more you give power to these things, they start having power over you and they consume you. Never think like that. You are enough, and sometimes taking a break, sometimes not doing anything is enough. You all deserve that to ourselves. Only then we can be kind to others. And I'd love it if anybody has any questions or anything.
Thank you so much, Ms. Sana. It was such a wonderful experience hearing your life story, and of course, we derive so much motivation and inspiration from all the wonderful words that you just shared. And I'm sure you would have guessed that through the messages that the students were sharing in the stream. So, and yes, of course, they have a few questions that they would like to ask. Our students are really, really impressed by your resilience and determination. And I do have a few students lined up over here who would want to ask a few things. So I would call out Malaika Salman first to ask a question. Hello. Hi Malaika, how are you doing? I'm good, how are you? I'm good. Malaika, you can ask your question now.
What steps did you take to get closer to your goal? Did you face any challenges?
What steps did I take to get closer to my goal?
Goal.
Oh, goal. Oh, sorry. Like I said before, I wasn't sure what my goal in life was, basically, to start with. I just wanted to be, and I wanted to live and be as ordinary as I could be under these ordinary circumstances that I had been thrust into. So the first step always was to get an education. I needed that. I needed that for my own mental peace, for on my own mental well-being, and that's what I did. I did my LLB and then I did my LLM, and that's I think I didn't set out I didn't really set out a roadmap. I didn't really plan, but things just started happening, and I used to feel very lost at one point. But like I said, when I did my LLB, then the LLM followed, then this whole fight for accessibility happened. It just step by step Allah made ways, and I found my purpose in life. But somehow it happened, and I think you grow every day, and that's what I did. I grew every day. I learned so much, and I didn't know that I would be so passionate about this, but I am, because first you think that this problem just affects you, and you just stay at home and you just want to put your head under the covers and just pretend that the world doesn't exist and you are just it. But no, it does, and the world is very much there, and you have every right to be a part of it, and that somehow became my goal, and the rest just followed.
Thank you so much for a wonderful response, Sana. Up next, we have Faiz Aware.
Yes, ma'am, I have a question.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Faiz.
My question is that, for example, if you had the ability to relive your life, if you were to relive your life, what would you do differently?
That's a very tough one. If I could relive my life, I'd like to be the same person that I am today, but maybe minus the spinal injury. Because I do like the person that I've become, because I feel this injury taught me so much. So it'll be wrong of me to say that I wish this hadn't happened, because sometimes I think I do have this mental conversation with myself where I think, would I have been the same if I had continued to live the life that I was living? Would I have been this compassionate? Would I have been this so much concerned about others? I don't know. I can't answer that. But if I did get a chance to live, I had the chance, I'd like to be the same, but maybe not in a wheelchair. But then that's also debatable. This wheelchair has given me a lot of power. So just to deny that, to erase that out of my life would be unfair as well.
Sana, how are you?
I'm good, thank you very much.
Well, I have the question. Did you face criticism when you decided to pursue your dreams?
I think I've been very lucky. I haven't faced criticism. I've always been very encouraged. But yes, of course, I do get the odd cynical answers from people who do have the ability to make a difference, that oh, nothing will be done, यहाँ तो ऐसा ही चलता है, कितने सालों से यही है, आप क्या कर लेंगी, आप लोग छोड़ें. So you do get that discouragement, but that's okay. Though that's just noise that you can choose to ignore. And I think I have conditioned my mind that I don't even hear those voices anymore. I am very focused on that. I have the ability, I've developed that ability to block out the negativity, to block out the discouragement. I do not waste my time on it.
If this negativity hinders your way and you really cannot achieve what you intend to in that way.
Yes, I do not plan to give it power. I do not plan to give it any importance.
Exactly. So next we have Rida Bano.
Good afternoon, Miss Sana. How are you?
Assalamualaikum. I'm good. I hope you guys are all well.
Yes, I'm really inspired by your story. You're really motivational.
Thank you.
I have a question for you. Whom did you give the credit to stand by your side, apart from your parents, to strengthen your courage and keep you moving despite all odds?
See, it's not just one person. Like I've said, it's an army of people. But the forefront of that army has always been my parents and my sisters. I think they are my backbone. Without them, I would be nothing. And they have been my arms, they have been my legs, they have lived their life for me, and especially my sister. So I give the whole credit of my life goes to them. And I've been very lucky, and I'm very, very, very grateful to Allah that He's given me people who've always encouraged me, my friends, my family, whoever I've met. I've met some great people along this journey, and I've met so many people who otherwise I would not have met. So I'm grateful for all of that. I'm very grateful. I think my family for and foremost. You know, even my little nephew, he was 4 years old or 3 years old, and he once asked me that, Sana, can't you walk? And I said, no, I cannot. So he was like, oh, don't worry, this wheelchair walks for you. So I was so impressed that day that this 3-year-old figured life at this age, which took me so many years to understand. So I've been very lucky, and I'm very grateful to Allah for all of that.
So Inaya, Ahmed, you can go now with your question.
Good afternoon, Ms. Sana. It's a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So my question for you is, you are a strong, independent woman now, a role model to many, inspiring and changing hearts every day. But during the series of unfortunate events that took place in your life, there must have been a flurry of emotions in your mind. Back then, did you ever think you would be the woman you are now?
Never. If you told me that I'd be here, I'd be talking to strangers about my life, I'd be sharing my story with complete strangers, I'd have a master's degree, I would have traveled the world, I would have laughed at your face, and I would have said, please go. Do not talk to me like this right now. Don't make fun of me, because I was in a very bad state in the early years of my life, and I have been through a lot of darkness, and it took me many years. And I'm so when I see people who jump back right after the trauma, after a few months, I am so impressed by them, because I won't call it wasted, but I've spent so many years of my life just feeling lost, just mourning for the life that I had planned for myself. But I guess that was a journey. That journey was necessary for me to realize my own potential. That journey was necessary for me to realize what I had inside me, and I guess that's it. I think there is no set criteria for acceptance. Some people take longer, some people accept the new circumstances really quickly. I think we all have our own timetable. There's no timetable for grief, for mourning, for acceptance. And I used to be really hard on myself, and I used to feel that I'd wasted all that time. But no, I've realized I've learned to forgive myself and to be kind to myself, and that part was the person that I am today.
Parish, are you there?
I'm good. Hope you are well.
Yes, my question is that had you not been in that car accident, would you have been the same person that you are today?
Like I've said before, I'm not sure. I hope that I would have been this person, and I would have been this kind and considerate and compassionate and empathetic, but I can't say that. Like I said before, this injury has taught me a lot. It has taught me kindness, compassion, empathy. It has taught me that courage can take you to places, and I hope that I would have been this person without it as well. But like I've said, this injury has made me realize, has made me a better person, and has made me realize that I need to be a better person as well. So that's a question I can't answer, sorry, but I hope so.
Yes, thank you.
Hello, good
How are
morning.
you?
I'm good, very well.
Miss, first of all, I would like to appreciate all that hard work and all your efforts during your life.
Thank you.
Miss, it's really awesome to see such a high qualified personality in front of me.
Thank you so much.
Okay, so Miss, my question for you is, what led you to pursue motivational speaking?
I don't know, it just happened to me. Like I said, life just happens to you and you don't even realize it without even planning. I was called by Dr. Amir Aziz to come and give a lecture in Gurki Hospital. It's spinal cord injury unit. It's the first of its kind for spinal injury. To come and talk to everybody that life doesn't end after a spinal injury. So he called me a day before and he said that talk is not going to take place in the hospital anymore. It's going to be in Lahore Medical and Dental College. Because that I was studying in Lahore Medical and Dental College when this accident happened. So you can imagine what emotions I had when I went back to my old college after so many years. The last I'd gone there, I was walking on my legs and I said bye bye to my friends and I went back there again. So at first I was freaking out, I was crying, I was so upset. I told my mother and I told my sister I'm not going to go ahead with this. They were like, no, you can do it, come on, go. So I went into the auditorium and it was full. I thought there'd be like a couple of people with 5-6 doctors or something at the most. Why would anybody come to hear my story? I mean, it's not special. So anyway, it was a full auditorium and Dr. Amir Aziz was there too. He was like, oh, just go, you can do it, don't worry. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met and I think the credit goes to him. Oh, and then once I started, I didn't stop. And I think he opened my eyes and he made me realize that okay, now is the time, I'm ready to talk about it happening. I realized that day that, oh, okay, now I can tell my story without crying, without feeling upset. So yes, that's when it happened, and then I started making TV appearances and one thing led to another, and that's where I am today.
And yes, we have you here today for the very reason because we wanted our students to derive utmost motivation from your wonderful presence.
That's really sweet. That's
So
very kind
next
of
we
you.
have.
I really admire your courage and I hope that one day I can be half as courageous as you.
I hope so. You will be too.
Okay, so my question is, there is no denying to the fact that failure and downfalls are a must. No man in this world is perfect or born with success. Failures in life bring the strongest humans to their knees. So my question is, what would you recommend to the students of our age group on how to train ourselves to fight our fears?
See, like I said before, I never knew one day I'll be this person that I am today. It took me a while to recognize my strength, because you know what I did? I was guilty of letting the society's definition of the person that I'd become, this disabled person that I'd become, I'd let that affect me. I had started believing their version of the definition, and I'd started believing that I was that person, that failure, that I didn't deserve to have a life because I was different now. Because I couldn't walk on my legs, I shouldn't go out. Because I cannot write, I shouldn't study. So the fault was mine, but it wasn't exactly better. How can you expect a teenager to understand the true essence, to understand the meaning of life, that we're all equal, and even if we are different, we all have a right to live our life the way we want to. We are not lesser human beings. If one thing is available for you, it should be available for me too. See, my message for all of you students would be that do not let anybody's opinion define you. You are not a label. You are bigger than that. If somebody you feel like a lesser human being, that's a reflection on them. That's got nothing to do with you. Remember that. It's their own insecurity that they are projecting on you. So be brave, be courageous, be confident enough to recognize that. You are your own person, even if you're flawed, even if you're imperfect, and we all are. Who can claim that they are perfect and they've got everything going for them? Nobody. And somebody says that, then just instead, no need to even waste your time on them. Just let them be. You are bigger than whatever the other person thinks of you. And you know, that's fine. We're human beings. And we are as equal. We have a right to live our life the way we want to. And nobody can tell us otherwise.
Thank you so much. That's so very important. We'll just move on to the last question.
Sana,
Good afternoon.
I hope you are well. I'm really inspired by your story, and I really love the way you talk.
Thank you.
So the question I want to ask you is that can you give us a basic guidelines on how to remain positive in an environment where we can see adults losing their minds so easily on petty things? How should we react to wrong or unethical behavior positively?
That's a very good question, I think, and you learn the answer to that as you live your life. You know, issues in life. I mean, people are dying, people are ill, people have so many things which they don't even talk about, and you know, we sort of are so engrossed in our own lives, and then we just let our issues just get the better of us, and sometimes we ourselves get into this negative space where we start thinking like other people, the people we hate and the people we disagree, we would start thinking about like them. So then we need to take a breath, step back and realize and evaluate and think about what we want to do, what we want to become, and how we want to deal with this and with situations. And the thing is, it's very difficult to deal with negativity. At one point of time it does affect you. So the thing would be to surround yourself with good, encouraging, positive people. And if you have a friend or somebody close to you who is going through a negative phase, try to help them, try to talk to them, try to make them understand the bigger picture. You know, we may feel what we are going through is the biggest in the world, but then again there are other issues in the world, and you know, you need to start looking at the glass to be half full than half empty, and you need to start focusing on the things that you have, on focusing on the positives instead of the negatives in your life, because negativity gets you nowhere. It just ruins your life, it ruins and it consumes you with hatred, and you after a while down the road, when you look back, you will realize that how silly was I to waste that amount of energy on negativity when I could have done so much. Negativity just cuts your wing, and you don't want that, and negative people also do that. To try to surround yourself with positivity, and there is so much to be grateful for. And if you feel that things are not going as you planned, then you need to ask yourself a question: what am I doing about it? Am I just complaining, or am I doing something to actually change this? We are just guilty of cribbing and complaining without, we don't even make an effort, and we expect things to get done. So you need to start doing things to make change. You know, you need to be active and do something before complaining, cribbing and blaming and pointing fingers is very easy, but that's just a waste of time. It's nothing. So instead of just letting negativity and pessimism consume you, try to take action, try to do something, try to find a purpose. When you start living for a purpose, you know, you don't have the time to waste on frivolous, irrelevant things. If you start taking action, you get a goal, you make a goal, and the goal doesn't need to be unrealistic, you don't need to climb Mount Everest. Just start with small goals, and you know, plan your life and focus on the things that you can do instead of the things that are not in your control.
Thank you so much, Sana. That has been so well covered. So I think I'll now formally thank you for gracing us with your presence, and I am sure that this session has inculcated a lot of positivity and courage in our students, and of course will enable them to look at things from a different perspective. So I guess it's time to sign off. I know there are students who have a few questions, but I think we can excuse those questions for now, because I really don't want to tire Ms. Sana for any longer. And guys, we will get back to them and we'll try to address them. And for the students, you will have to access the Padlet wall now and share your views over there. And we have a final sign off. Ms. Sana, thank you so much again. It was wonderful. I really cannot express in words how amazing it has been to have you around. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and like I said before, I learned so much from these students and the way they think, and I'm super impressed by what they have life figured out at a very young age, when you know, it took me so many years to understand that. So it's always a pleasure to interact with young students.
Yeah, but now it's you who's kind of a driving, motivational force for them. So thanks again. I think we can say a goodbye now.
Thank you so much, and all the best for whatever you do. Stay focused, be kind always. This is a very simple mantra to have in life. Be kind to yourself and be kind to the people around.